when power met justice. A story that will leave you speechless. Picture this. It's a quiet evening in small-town America.
Oh.
And something absolutely unthinkable is about to unfold. What happens when those sworn to protect become the very people who destroy? And what happens when they pick the wrong person to mess with? Trust me, you're not prepared for this story. Right. So imagine you're driving through the countryside at sunset. Everything's peaceful, serene even. But then suddenly, sirens pierce the silence. And chaos erupts in what should be the most unlikely place, a deserted field in the middle of nowhere. Now, what I'm about to tell you sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood thriller. But sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. Here's where it gets absolutely mental. The person being dragged across this field isn't just anyone. We're talking about one of the highest-ranking women in American military history, a proper legend, who's dedicated her entire life to serving her country. Picture her uniform, covered in medals and ribbons, each one representing battles fought, lives saved, and sacrifices made. But here she is, being tied to a tree by the very people who should be saluting her. The officers and, I use that term, loosely are, having a right laugh about it, circling her like vultures, hurling insults, spitting on the ground near her boots. One of them even has the audacity to say, "Where's your army now, General?" Another sneers that medals don't mean anything out here, that they own her now. Can you imagine the sheer arrogance, the complete disconnect from reality? But here's what these Muppets don't realize. They're not just humiliating a person, they're attacking everything she represents. Every fallen soldier she's mourned, every impossible mission she's completed, every night she's spent in hostile territory keeping others safe. And whilst they're busy patting themselves on the back, she's doing something brilliant. With a discreet movement, and this is where it gets proper cinematic, she activates a hidden device strapped under her sleeve. One tiny press, and a signal shoots across encrypted channels, bouncing off satellites. Racing straight to the heart of the military machine she once commanded, it's like watching a master chess player make the move that'll checkmate their opponent, except the opponent has no clue what's coming. Now, pause for a moment. Think about the worst mistake you've ever made. Got it right. Well, multiply that by about 1,000, and you're getting close to what these officers have just done. Because whilst they think they're in control, they've actually just poked a sleeping giant with a very sharp stick. Miles away, in military command centers across the country, alarms start blaring. Screens light up with coordinates. Someone shouts, "General Avery's distress beacon." And suddenly it's like watching an anthill that's been kicked. Analysts scrambling, orders being barked, helicopter blades starting to churn. Within minutes, armored convoys are roaring to life, their engines growling like beasts that have just caught the scent of prey. The beautiful thing about this moment is that it's not just about military protocol. These soldiers remember her. They remember her voice cutting through the chaos of battle, her courage when everything seemed hopeless, the way she never left anyone behind. Now, well, not one of them is about to abandon her. Back in the field, our deluded officers are getting bolder by the minute. They're dragging dirt across her uniform, mocking her medals, treating symbols of genuine heroism like playground trophies. One absolute melt even pulls out his phone to record the whole thing, probably planning to share it on social media like some sort of victory lap. But here's where the general shows exactly why she reached such heights in the military. Instead of breaking down, instead of begging, she looks this fool dead in the eye and says, "Calm as you like, enjoy your moment, because when my people arrive, you won't even remember how to laugh." The officers laugh it off naturally, still living in their fantasy, where they hold all the cards. But if they'd bothered to pay attention, they might have noticed the faint tremor in the ground beneath their feet. It starts subtle, like distant thunder that you feel more than hear. The kind that makes dogs nervous and birds take flight. Then the horizon starts to change. Headlights appear, not just a few, but rows upon rows of them. It's armored vehicles bearing military insignia, each one carrying soldiers who'd walk through fire for their general. The first helicopters cut across the twilight sky, their rotors, slicing through the silence with a roar that makes the officers' grins falter. This is the moment everything shifts. The playground bullies suddenly realize they're not dealing with an isolated victim. They've declared war on an entire army. And that army has just arrived for the fight. Picture the scene. Dozens of military trucks thundering forward, Soldiers dismounting with textbook precision, weapons raised, faces grim as granite. Floodlights snap on, turning the field brighter than day. The laughter dies instantly. The arrogance drains away like water through a sieve. Panic flickers in the officer's eyes, but it's far too late for regrets now. The general, still bound to that tree, lifts her head with pride that no rope could ever constrain. Her voice cuts through the chaos. This uniform isn't just cloth. It's a promise one you've broken, and one they will now enforce. And that S, when the field transforms from a crime scene into a courtroom where justice arrives wearing combat boots. Soldiers spread out in perfect formation, their movements synchronized like a deadly ballet. Laser sights cut through the darkness. Helicopters hover low, their spotlights sweeping across officers who are now trembling like leaves in a hurricane. A commanding voice shatters the air. Untie her. Now, but here's where one desperate officer makes the worst decision of his life. Instead of surrendering, instead of accepting defeat gracefully, he lunges forward with a concealed pistol, not aimed at the soldiers who could end him in an instant, but at the general herself, one final act of spite in a night defined by poor choices. Time freezes. The entire world holds its breath. But the general doesn't flinch. She simply locks eyes with him, her gaze colder than a winter morning. And then crack a sniper's bullet sends the pistol spinning harmlessly into the dirt. The officer collapsing with a shattered wrist, and what's left of his dignity in tatters. Chaos erupts as the remaining officers are slammed to the ground, restrained with brutal efficiency. Their shouts are drowned beneath the roar of choppers and the bark of orders. Justice isn't whispering anymore, it's roaring. As the ropes fall from her wrists, the general staggers forward, rubbing the raw marks on her skin. Every soldier's eyes burn with fury on her behalf, but she raises her hand for silence. She has something to say, and by God, the world is going to hear it. They thought they could bind me, humiliate me, strip me of my dignity, but they forgot something crucial. I am not just one woman, I am an army. I am every soldier who ever bled for this flag, every family who ever sacrificed, every life given for freedom. Tonight, justice isn't mine, alone it's ours. The soldiers roar in unison, a sound so powerful it rattles the ground, so fierce it makes the captured officers shrink further into the dirt. Because in that roar is something more than victory. It's a reminder that whilst ropes might bind a body, they can never chain a spirit. What started as humiliation has become something far more powerful, a resurrection of honor. Broadcast live to millions watching in stunned silence. Veterans salute through tears, children whisper in awe, and citizens who'd lost faith in justice feel that spark reignite. The general steps closer to the captured officers, her voice steady as steel. You wore the badge of law, but you shattered it. You used power not to protect, but to destroy. And now the entire world sees you for exactly what you are. This story teaches us something profound about the nature of true power. It's not found in ropes or uniforms or the ability to humiliate others. Real power lies in integrity, in the bonds forged through service and sacrifice, in the knowledge that when you stand for something greater than yourself, others will stand with you. Those officers thought they could strip away dignity, but dignity is on something external that can be taken. It's forged from within through the choices we make and the principles we uphold. They learned in the most dramatic way possible that when you attack someone who represents something larger than themselves, you're not fighting one person, you're taking on an entire movement. So next time you see someone in uniform, remember this story. Remember that behind those medals and ribbons lies a human being who chose service over self, who stood ready to sacrifice everything for strangers they'd never meet. That's worth respecting, worth protecting, and definitely worth thinking twice before messing with. If this story gave you chills, if it made you think about justice and honor and what happens when power meets its match, then smash that like button and let me know in the comments what you thought about this incredible tale. And if you want more stories that'll leave you absolutely speechless, then you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because trust me, we're just getting started.